welcome to Super Bell Sews. My name's Sarah. Thanks for joining me today. This is very exciting because it is my first episode of Chubby Chats, which is hopefully what will be a series of me interviewing some of my favourite plus size and fat creators in the craft community. We're starting off today with a really good one. We have the beautiful team behind the Curvy Coven. So the Curvy Coven is a collective of fat and plus size sewists. It started out with 3 members, Rebekah, Cait and Christina, wanting a space where bigger creators could get together and talk about sewing and patterns and fabric and all of the above. And it has grown into this really amazing community of 150 plus people. And I've had a really nice chat with them today about how the coven came about some of their thoughts on sewing and patterns and everything else. So please do enjoy and let me know if there's anyone that you would like me to talk to in the future, or if you have any questions, I can pass them on to anyone we've spoken to. So do let me know and enjoy. Thanks. Bye. Hi, ladies.
Hi.
Hello. Thanks for joining me today for our first Chubby Chats. Do you want to tell, I've obviously met you all through the Curvy Coven and I'd seen you all on Instagram prior to that, but do you want to introduce yourself to everybody? So maybe if we start with Christina.
Hello, I'm Christina, or T Operated on Instagram. I've been sewing for a couple of years now, and I'm really excited to be here.
Great. What sort of things do you like to sew most?
I mean, mostly I sew dresses, because they're easy and they're fun and they're one and done. I'm trying to get braver, so I've just done my very first winter coat with the help of the Coven.
Oh, wow. Okay, so, the Coven has been a great resource, hasn't it, for so many of us, especially with starting new projects and things. So we'll get on to the Coven, we'll get on to it, because it's a really exciting thing to be talking about. How about you, Cait? Do you want to introduce yourself to everybody?
Hi, I am Cait. Cait Sews on Instagram. And I have been sewing for many, many years. I actually have a degree in textiles, in embroidery, of all things. But I only started seriously dressmaking about 3 years ago, 3 to 4 years ago. But before that, embroidery, quilting, toy making, everything else.
Wow. So do you do much embroidery on your me-mades now?
Do you know, I haven't. And it's something that I am meaning to do. I feel like I'm still learning. And I'm not quite ready to commit to the sort of time scale of embroidering onto my clothes, but it is something I would like to do.
Yeah, amazing. And how about you, Bex?
So I'm Rebekah. Rebekah Does Stuff on Instagram. I've been sewing about 15 months now. I wanted to sew before, tried it in about 2016, discovered no patterns would fit me. Thought I'd go and learn how to do it myself. I was like, how hard can this be? I'll just learn to draft. And then started looking at other plus size sewists on Instagram and going, oh, hang on, there must be pattern companies out there making it. And I think actually, Sarah, it was your Bell, the first one I saw, and I was like, oh, this is possible.
And what did that start? The Bell?
Pardon? Yeah,
the Bell,
like
what did that start for you?
Yeah. It was just downhill from there. It's just bell. And then started following other fat sewists on Instagram and going, I literally sat in bed one night just making a list, going through, I think yours Sarah's, yours Cait, yours Christina's posts, going, they're companies that will fit me, and writing them down so as I could then start, going slightly obsessive and buying every pattern in the world. So I've been sewing probably about 15 months now.
I can't believe you've been sewing for such a short amount of time and you've already created a whole coven, made 500 bells.
Yeah, when people don't say no to me, I just keep going.
It's no better, Bex.
Slightly dangerous, actually.
That's good advice. So how did you 3 meet each other?
So, when I started sewing, and I'd been knitting for years before that, so I was quite on Insta and knew my way around hashtags and things. I started looking at hashtags for dresses and looking at plus size sewing hashtags, and I found Cait. And she looked amazing. And she was wearing the most fabulous dresses, posing in front of her amazing intersexual feminist quilt. And she had some text in her blurb that said she hadn't been sewing garments for very long. So I reached out to say hello, to say, I love your clothes, you're amazing. And we got talking. And Cait, being a lovely person and also a teacher by calling, was immediate, like, right, you're new, you need to know about this, and this, and was just the most helpful, kindest person. And we became really good friends. And that's the beginning. And then around about the time that Cashmere launched the Savan coat, I desperately wanted to make it, but was terrified and was looking on the hashtags of the Savan, and found Bex, who was kicking butt at making an amazing Savan, and reached out and went, hey, is this really, really hard? Is this really, really scary? And we got talking. And I think the rest is history, really. I've probably missed lots of bits, but...
No, that's what I remember. I remember you sending Bex, I think it was in stories you were sharing it, Bex, sent the story and said, oh, this woman is making the coat and it's looking amazing. So I went and stalked her like an Instagram stalker, and I think you said, shall we invite her? Shall we invite her to our group?
And I think we talked to Bex about maybe vaguely going to a Frocktails at some point.
Yeah.
And then Scottish Frocktails was on, and I didn't know you so well then, so I was like, you'll never come to Frocktails in Scotland, but we'll ask you. And you were there. That was amazing.
You forget that when you say things, I do things. It's dangerous.
It was amazing. So we met up in person for the first time at the end of September, having already started the Coven. Cait and I had met before, but only a couple of times. But the three of us met for the first time. You know,
Also, the Frocktails we just had was the first.
Yeah.
That was the first time you met. Amazing! Wow.
Yeah, I was
Although we do have
going, stranger danger. Is this?
Yeah.
It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine.
If you think the Coven is busy, Sarah, you should see our personal chat.
I mean,
I've never counted the number of messages per day, but it must be quite a lot.
Oh, but I love that. It's like, I think with sewing, you can spend so much time. Like, I started sewing during, like a lot of people during the pandemic. And obviously the beauty of it then was that you could just do it in your house and you could, you know, but it can be quite a sort of lonely hobby. So it's so nice, obviously with the Coven, but also with your group, that you found like the sort of social aspect of that.
Yeah, no, it's a really isolating hobby actually, because, and when they're fit issues that are specific to your body. So although people can go, oh, have you tried an FBA or have you tried this? It's like, yeah, but that's just in theory. Like, how does that work on me? And I think it becomes quite isolating from that perspective, particularly when you're brand new to doing it, because as a fat sewist, you have to make changes on almost every pattern. Like, I suspect you do if you're thinner as well, but I think it's more standard that you're going to have to do an FBA just before you even begin to make a dress. So not having anyone around to go, yeah, you're doing this right, is a really difficult place to be when you first start.
Yeah, and so how did the Coven, from the three of you, how did we get to the Coven and how did it grow into what it is? It might be worth explaining what the Coven is.
Yeah, probably should start
to people
there.
who aren't in it.
Well, if you're not in it, why not? Come join us, it's great. So the Curvy Coven is basically a WhatsApp community made up of fat sewists who like to chat a lot about sewing, and we've got people from brand new, have never sewn anything before in their lives, right up to we've got a lovely lady who has been teaching for 20 years. So we've got all this knowledge in the Coven that just, you put up a photo and within seconds there are at least 15 people explaining to you exactly how to do the changes that you need to do. There are people who put up messages going, I'm about to go out for dinner and this doesn't quite fit right, and you've instantly just got people going, quick suggestions, here you go. So it's just this lovely community of about 150 of us now, who are just in your phone, immediately available. If you've run out of bobbin and you've lost bobbin chicken, there's plenty of people to commiserate with you. If you've done your first ever sheared seam, there's hundreds of people to cheer you on. It's just lovely. So I think I've just looked back at our timeline of how we ended up here, because I don't think when we set out we thought we'd be doing this. But so we started with pattern name fat and pattern name plus as hashtags, because I got annoyed that I couldn't see fat sewists anymore on the Instagram algorithm, that it changed. So when I started looking for a dress, there was no one of a similar size to me to make me go, oh, okay, this might work for me. So I got annoyed about that. And when I get annoyed about things snowball. So we started that. And then out of that, we had a lot of people reaching out saying, oh, we'd love a community. We'd love to be able to chat with people about it. And I'd obviously said that Christina and Cait and I had a little group chat, and we thought, oh, let's expand this out. Well, we'll add 5 or 6 people. It'd be lovely. So we put up a post, and I then went off to sit in a field because my colleague had convinced me to go camping, which was not something I'd do. And when I came back from the field, poor Christina and Cait had been fielding all these messages for an entire evening. People going, I'd like to join, I'd like to join. And I came back to I think there were about 60 of us on the first day, weren't there? And it's just sort of grown from there. And it's clearly this was a space that was needed and people desperately wanted it. And it just doesn't exist anywhere else that we've found. And now it's here and it's great.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Because I don't know about everyone else, but when I started sewing, obviously you're used to not having much choice in ready-to-wear clothes. And I just had this thing that I was like, oh, sewing's going to be a lot more inclusive. I was really surprised when, I do think I came in just on the cusp of quite a few pattern companies starting to expand and things like that. So I didn't see the worst of it, but I remember initially being like, buying a load of stuff and then basically being like, none of this, I can't use any of this. And I was unaware of that because I wasn't seeing other sort of fat or plus size sewists online. So I would just see a sewing influencer saying, I'm making this pattern, and I'd think, oh, I can make that pattern. And then I'd buy it and I'd think, oh, I can fit in a shop 20 or 22 or whatever. And then obviously not understanding that that's a completely different thing, the sizing. So it was like a real,
in and of itself is something to try and get your head around. The fact that you are one size in a shop and then you pick up a pattern, suddenly you're like 15 sizes bigger, and you're like, what? How? And because I came into this post-COVID and I hadn't bought anything, I was like, oh my god, how much have I put on? And so it was that kind of like just that expectation of what I thought it was going to be and what actually the sizing was. That's something to really get your head around as well.
I think that's a really important thing about sewing in a fat body, and why the coven's lovely as well, but also having fat friends is great, because it takes a while to get over, you do your measurements and you work out your size, and to get into the headspace of, actually I don't want the smallest size I can squeeze in, I want the size that will fit me. So I redid my measurements a while ago and realised that I'd been pulling the tape a little bit too tight, and this is me years into accepting my body, loving my body, or at least being neutral about it, but suddenly realising that I'd just been pulling it a little bit tighter than was true across the bust. And obviously spoke to these guys and they're immediately like, well done, to be so warm and included, and, have my hand held through that sort of like, okay, that's up a size. That doesn't matter. And that's where community and support becomes so important, because no one's finished on a body acceptance, body neutrality journey. It's a lifetime, and society will always be pushing us in the other direction. But to have friends and the coven supporting us through it just makes it much easier, and it's a voice counteracting the voice of society saying you're not good enough. There are now 140 odd witches saying, yeah, you are, you look amazing, and that is so good for you psychologically.
Definitely. I think one of the things I found really nice in the coven is seeing people making patterns that I previously might have said, like, oh, I would never wear trousers, or like the whole jumpsuit thing of like, I wouldn't wear a jumpsuit, I wouldn't make a jumpsuit. And then you see other bodies like yours and you think, well, they look amazing. So, and sometimes it's something straight out of the packet. Sometimes it's like they have made certain adjustments and they can say to you, okay, it fits, it's a bit big here, it's a bit small here, you'll probably need to do this, that or the other. But I just feel like it's sort of opening up a much wider much wider options of what we can be making, and
The power of seeing similar bodies looking wonderful in clothes that my kind of outdated self-talk has told me 20 years ago I couldn't wear has been so healing. Especially as I had such a clear notion of this is the silhouette that works for me, and unpicking what that actually, how much of that was what I liked and how much of it was ready to wear clothes in that silhouette were the ones that worked for me. And realizing that there's a safe space where I can go and I can be vulnerable and I can share a photograph of myself that feels, inverted commas, unflattering, which is the word I'm trying to move away from. And I can get assistance that is sort of about the engineering of my body. I can talk about the shape of my stomach in this garment. And what I'm looking at is how to best fit for that piece of my body, but not to hide it, not to minimize it, and not to vilify it.
But I think also people don't shy away from the word belly in the coven. Like, it exists. And I think that's so different to other spaces where if you're in a plus size body and people aren't, them trying to help you fit something, they will very much like walk around the word. And it's like, no, we can deal with the fact I'm fat. That is what it is. Like, and we haven't got that here. I mean, I made my first wiggle dress yesterday and I put up some photos and I was like, I'm not necessarily feeling this. And I immediately just had people going, no, because it's just how you're standing, and do this and do this. And like, in real time, people were boosting my confidence to be able to do it. And that's just such a lovely experience that you just don't get anywhere else.
And you looked amazing in the wiggle dress.
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
That's something I'm trying to learn from you, Bex. I love how what someone says you looked amazing, you just go, yes, I did. I really want to learn that from you. It's so healthy. It's not what we're taught to do, and I'm going to learn. I'm going to learn.
Good, because you do look good.
What you were saying about the use of words is really interesting as well, because I've definitely felt like certain words, so fat being a really key one, I would not have used that word to describe myself a couple of years ago,
No, me
even
either.
though I knew I was fat, but because the word is so weighted.
Yeah.
And interestingly, now I do use it, and once I used it on my Instagram stories when I was talking about wedding dress shopping. So I did not make my own wedding dress. I couldn't have dealt with the stress, but I went to a Curve wedding dress shop and I had a great experience.
It looked like a really lovely experience, actually.
Yeah, it was really nice, and it's surprising how many of my sort of straight-sized, slimmer friends who went to like a normal wedding dress shop and had a horrible experience. So I had a great time, but I posted some stories about it, and on one of them I said it was something like, how did I, a fat bride, find the dress of my dreams? And I got several responses from very slim people saying, oh, don't talk about yourself like that. Like, or it really upsets me you use that word. And I had to go back and be like, but why does it upset you? It doesn't upset me. It's just a descriptive word. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a problem
Or
because...
when people say, you're not fat, you're beautiful.
Yeah,
I can be
I
both.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
someone who
interesting
said they were
because
tall or short. It's just fat that seems to give this. And actually, I've got an 8-year-old godson, and we were walking up a hill, and I just said to him, "Oh, slow down, I'm too fat for this." And he went, "Oh, no, Becca, you're not fat." And I'm like, "No, I am. That's fine." Like, and I'm telling you, I can't do something because I'm fat. And he was just absolutely distraught at the idea that I would call myself such a mean word. And I was like, "Oh, we're teaching that so young."
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Because it's just like, and I think about when I was a teenager or whatever, if someone had called me fat, I would have been devastated. Like, devastated. And then you think, but why? But I suppose it's like anything. It's like, if the intention behind it is negative, is mean, then it's a problem. But if it's just a descriptive word, which is what it should be, then it's not a problem, you know. But it was really interesting. It was all very slim people, and I was like, guys, it's fine. Like, it's just a
We've
word. It's
grown up
fine.
in the era of magazines where, like, I remember one of the first magazines I read was like, if you had more than an inch to pinch, you needed to lose weight. And like those kind of things are just ingrained in our society as you grow up. And you sit there and you just think, oh my goodness, how many hours have I wasted being upset and worrying about this? I could have been living my life. And it's not going to change anything, you know. Yes, I could spend the next 30 years of my life continuing to attempt a diet that hasn't worked so far. I wouldn't get anything done.
So
And Rebekah gets a lot done.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, I see the messages, and that's probably only like a tenth of it. So if you were speaking to another fat person who hadn't sewed before, and they were saying, you know, I'm thinking, you know, I'm seeing what you're doing, and I'm thinking like I might fancy giving it a go, what would be the advice that you would give to that person who's never sewn before?
Get yourself in the coven immediately. Step one.
That is step one. What's
That's
step two?
one. Step two. Find something you want to make. I don't ascribe to this whole like, oh, if you're a beginner, you can only make a boxy t-shirt. If you want to make something and you want to feel good in it, make the thing that's going to make you feel good. Yes, it might go wrong. Yes, we might have to do 15 attempts. But if you're going to love it and the outcome at the end of it is you're going to feel good and you're going to feel confident, that's where we need to be. And I do.
What was your first make, Bex?
A bell.
A bell was your first make?
I didn't know that it was going to be difficult because I had no concept. I just saw it and went, Sarah looks good. And then I went down the whole thing and went, well, fat women look good in this. I'm going to look good in this. I also, at the point of making my first bell, I had COVID. So I was just like, it's only hard because I've got a massive fever. So I didn't realise what I was doing and just kept going. So it never occurred to me that sewing instructions were going to have, well, instructions which don't exist for the bell. I didn't realise that should have been there. So at that point I didn't know that I shouldn't know what I was doing. So I think I made about 15 different attempts and it all went wrong about 1,000 times. But now I'm obsessed. So
you did shirring, or I'm going to say, I used to say shearing, and then someone on YouTube told me off that I was saying it wrong. So now I say shirring, but I don't even know if that's right. So you did that for your first make?
Yeah. But equally, I thought that's what I should be doing as a fat person, because if you buy clothes, they all have the elasticated back, so they don't have to fit you properly.
This is true.
So
this is very true.
Yeah, I didn't realise that it. Well, actually, the first thing I tried to do was out of a book from She Who Shall Not Be Named, but it turns out that I was too fat for those patterns, and when I reached out, they weren't particularly helpful, so they are now shunned. But yeah, the bell. Just made a bell.
Yeah.
And then
well, at least though, your first make is something that you loved, because it was a long time before I was making things that I thought looked good. Whereas, I mean, you had a challenge, but at least you ended up with something.
I immediately made about 5 more bells, and then we went on holiday, and I just wore a bell every day, and felt fantastic, which was such a good thing for confidence.
Yeah. And how about you, Cait? What was your first make?
So, I did do a tiny bit of dressmaking when I was in my late teens, early 20s at art school. But I was at art school, so it was much more avant-garde, and I was much smaller. So I don't really count those years, but technically I did make a few garments. And then there was a long gap where I thought, when I'm thin, I'll make myself beautiful clothes. And what a waste, because I could have been making beautiful clothes for a very long time. And deciding to dressmake was a really significant step in my health at every size body journey, where I realised that clothes are really important to me. I love to express myself through colour and pattern, and I just got really bored of ill-fitting polyester black cold shoulder garments. There's also for me a big environmental and ethical impact of making my own clothes. It's really important to me to try and minimise harm where I can. And unfortunately, I was pushed into fast fashion because there wasn't that much ethical plus size clothing available. So I kind of had to wear effectively fast fashion. But all that to say, when I decide to do something, I am pretty determined. So I spent 3 months researching and listening to, I later found out, about 90 episodes or 90 hours of Love to Sew podcast. So I spent 3 months doing this intense research journey. Bought myself a fancy overlocker before I'd even made my first garment. But I made a Twig and Tail Fable dress. Twig and Tail is one of the companies that I really appreciate for their inclusivity, and also their instructions are really lovely and clear and kind, and it feels like an inclusive and ethical company as well. So that was my first one. And then I made a few Copper Creek patterns. I just got kind of carried away from there. But I do have lots of sewing experience, so it's a little bit unfair to say I was a beginner because, as I said, I have a degree in sewing. So
yeah, amazing. And Christina, what was your first pattern?
So I'd been knitting for years, and had wanted to learn to sew, but I have a kid and I just didn't have time, and it didn't feel, the whole pins, scissors, needles thing didn't feel like the best for me at that point in time. But as my daughter got a wee bit older, she was just coming up for 10, and suddenly I found I had more time. So I'd been looking online for years. I'd been following Cashmerette for years. I'd been following Munner and Broad for years. And I'd started to sort of find fat sewists. And like Cait says, I started sort of mental research. So when I first went, okay, I'm going to go for this, I made a Helen's Closet Orchard dress because it was a free pattern. And I took a really odd approach. I set out to make the worst possible dress because I can be a complete perfectionist. So I set out to make a bad dress with cheap fabric and learn a lot. And so the Instagram post where I'm talking about it, I'd never made bias tape before. I didn't know that bubble crepe was not a good thing to start with. My goodness, that was tough. And I made a dress that was, to use, and flattering's a dirty word, but it didn't flatter me. It hung off my bust and carried on hanging, which on me is not a good look. But it was a dress, and I tried it on, and although I would never wear it out the house, I had learnt a huge amount, which then meant that I could go on to, I made a couple of other things, and then quite quickly I was on to wearable things because I'd given myself permission to be imperfect and to make what was objectively a truly hideous garment. I can't overstate
really
how
not.
ugly this garment was. I mean, I no longer have it, but black polka dots on royal blue for a start, and not in a good way, in a slightly faded way. But it was really, really helpful and got me over measuring a lot of my fears, and then I was able to sort of carry on going. So the first dress that I made that I still wear is only just size inclusive, but was an assembly line cuff dress. And I absolutely max out the size, and it technically doesn't fit me on the hip. But I've got 2 or 3 of those and I still wear them all the time.
Great. That's a good selection of different companies that have sort of been your first main garments. Do you have favourite companies? Which companies do you think are the best ones for bigger bodies?
So, I yesterday got accused of being a cult leader for Cashmerette in the Coven, and I will happily accept that. Jenny knows boobs. I mean, there is nothing I won't trust Jenny in my boobs with. Just, it doesn't exist. She put out the Marblehead bikini. I didn't think I was ever going to wear a bikini in my life. That wasn't part of my life. And then she put it out and I went, well, if Jenny says I can do it, I can do it. So I made a bikini, which I wore on holiday, I wore it at the beach, which I don't think I'd ever have thought I would have done. I was just on a beach and I saw all these people on the beach who were a lot thinner than me, looking really uncomfortable about being on a beach. And I was busy just being like, hello, look at my boobs. I'm fantastic. I'm going in the sea. And that was such a weird thing for me because, even 2-3 years ago, going to a beach, I would have got undressed under a towel. I would have hidden away. I wouldn't have done it. Indeed, like last year, we went on holiday and got a private villa with a pool because I didn't want anyone to see me. And then this year I was like, nah, I look great. I'm going out. So definitely cashmere, and I think there's a lot of love for cashmere generally in the Coven. I think their block is so consistent that I know the adjustments I have to do to one pattern, and I know that I can make them to every pattern, and they will fit me, and they will be fine, and they are such good patterns to hack from. Like Christina's Nicks that she's wearing at the moment, that's hacked from a Kinnerton, because you know the fit's going to be good. And I think sometimes, certainly what we've been seeing is people are struggling to get past some of how it's perhaps styled when it's first put out there. And actually, if you get past that, so I hold my hands up, I thought the Loring was the most ugly dress I had ever seen in the world. I did not believe that it could be possible to look good, but I trust Jenny, so I made one. It's probably been my most worn dress of the summer, because when you take away some of the ruffles and you pare it back a little bit, it's a really beautiful silhouette. It's lovely. And so I think just getting people past the way they've made it might not be to your taste, but if you look at these line drawings, they are phenomenal. The Upton, I mean, you can make anything out of an Upton. I mean, you've seen that, Sarah, you've done it. But, you know, there is literally, it's impossible not to be able to look at a dress on Pinterest and go, I can hack that from the Upton, because it's such a good base. So I think cashmere are very high up there on ones that I like. Another company, they're really...
Cashmere. Yeah, I'm with you on cashmere. I love, and it's something about seeing Jenny on their Instagram feed years ago before I was sewing and realising it was possible. But Cait, I know you love Chalk and Notch, and you've had some massive success with Chalk and Notch.
Yeah, I think Chalk and Notch are excellent. I'm currently wearing an Ivy, which has been my dress of the summer. So Chalk and Notch was one of the first ones I had huge success with. I made the Orchid midi, although I redrafted the sleeve to be like the is it the M7969, that the cult one that isn't unfortunately inclusive. So I kind of had a stab at making my own version of that sleeve. But yeah, Chalk and Notch are beautifully drafted, and I think that Gabriella takes immense care in fitting and in testing. I was actually paid tester slash maker for the Shea dress, so it was fascinating being in the, even though I wasn't one of the testers, but being in the tester community and observing how much care she took. Plus, when I was making my version, she was so happy to give me one-to-one fitting advice, and she said, look, but I would do this for anyone. So if anyone is having trouble with the Chalk and Notch pattern, I really would highly recommend getting in contact, because the care and advice is top notch.
See, I've never made a Chalk and Notch pattern, but you've just made me wonder why. Why have I not?
Genuinely stunning. And also, I really like to give my money to nice people.
Yeah. I don't know about you. Sometimes I get stuck in a bit of a rut with certain companies, because it's like the thought of having to suss out the fit of a new block.
Yes.
Sometimes I'm like, I just can't face having to work out if it's going to fit me or not. So, because there are people in the group who are really into their fitting and are very, in the Coven, I should say, who are really precise. And I'm not that person. Like, I want it to look nice and fit, but I just don't have the patience to go through all the steps. And I feel like because of that, sometimes it just has taken me longer than it should have to get to certain companies, because I'm just thinking like, I just can't face working out my fit in a new block. So that's very encouraging to hear if you're giving them a good review.
Yeah, no, they are. Chalk and Notch are fantastic. Because I was a bit iffy about making the Shea, and then I saw Cait's and I was like, looks phenomenal on Cait. Okay, I'm going to give it a go. And then obviously, like, I was chatting to Cait and she was like, no, do it. It's going to be fine. And, you know, the drafting is just phenomenal. And you can see in the instructions how much care has gone into these patterns and how to fit it. And there's advice on how to do an FBA in the pattern. And that's not something I see very regularly. And stuff like that is just so lovely and encourages you to go, oh, they actually care about making sure this fits to my body. I don't have to go away and find an additional resource to be able to work out how to do this FBA.
That's also the power of seeing people in bodies like yours in patterns. So I haven't made the share yet. It's well up on my list, but you know, Cait, you took the most beautiful pictures of you in the share. Gabriella has used them on her grid. I believe
she paid me for them.
Yes,
that's what she wanted. She wanted me to make the dress and to give her. I wasn't a tester. I was paid to produce the sort of advertising content.
It's so important because it works. We now know, and so one of the reasons is when I check out a new pattern maker, I look at them and go, is there anyone like me? And I'm very excited that we're working with Stylark because I know that the bell would suit me because I've seen you in the bell, Sarah. I'd seen you in the bell, Bex. I didn't necessarily know that from their grid. So it's really nice that we're talking to them about fixing that because for me, it's hugely important that we recognise that dresses look different on different folk. Yeah. And you need to have a variety of people, a variety of body shapes in order to really show off how they look.
And I actually think I don't think it's controversial in this group, but I actually think the bell looks better on fat bodies.
I think I'd agree with you. I mean, I've seen bells beautiful at every size. I don't actually believe it's possible to make a bad bell. I think that's fundamentally not possible. I genuinely think I could give it a go with a bin bag. Would still look phenomenal. But I do think it's a really nice dress for bigger bodies. I mean, the way it hits your curves is exactly what I think I want in a dress. And I think that's really lovely. So
yeah.
But I do think, as Cait said, it's so important to have representation of body sizes in your marketing. I am fed up with seeing people on Instagram complaining that they're not getting sales when they increase their sizing because they haven't sold it to me. How do I know you've increased your sizing? I don't follow you because you didn't make my size. Unless you're reaching out to the fat community and saying, hi, we're here, how are we supposed to know? And it's one of my biggest frustrations is looking at people and saying, you're not actually size inclusive, are you? Because if you were, I'd be on your grid.
Plus, there's so many different ways to be size inclusive.
Yes.
We have all shopped in shops who say they go to a 22 or a 24, but they've taken their size 6 block and just graded it up with the same rule. And what I realised as I did my intense 3 months of research is bodies, that's not how my body works. I am not 12 times bigger than a size 8 person's wrist measurement, for example. No. It doesn't go like that. So, a company who says they draft a certain size, but do they draft with the understanding of how my body has changed?
And how my body has... easy way for you to tell as a newbie. If you pick up a pattern and suddenly the shoulder is 25 centimetres wide, the drafting and the care for bigger bodies just isn't there. Because it doesn't matter how fat I get, my shoulders can't add that much fat to them because it would fall off. So if I've got a 25-inch shoulder, something's gone drastically wrong. I mean, I made the Mood Poppy dress, which is a free pattern, and I thought, this is going to be gorgeous because the bell looks gorgeous. And the shoulder was 27 centimetres in my pattern. My shoulder is, I think, 13.5 centimetres. My friend who's a size 2 is 12.5 centimetres. There's not that much difference. So I made it because I thought, let's just see how bad this is. It was awful. But I thought, you know what, I'm going to put it out there so people can see what bad drafting looks like. Because I think it's really important to recognise that it would be lovely if every company could be size inclusive, and I think we do need to get to that point where it isn't a regular size and a plus size, it's just a size range, because that's what it should be. But not everyone has got that skill set to do it, and just grading up and up and up and up doesn't work. You just need a second block and start from there. But I do think it's really disappointing when you see companies complaining that they aren't getting plus sizes making their clothes when they don't feature on the grid. It's just a real shame, and there are so many of us out there who, if you give me a pattern, I will quite happily make it and you can have pictures, not a problem. But they're not reaching out to us, and then they're complaining that we're not buying their patterns, and it's got to go both ways. And I just think at the moment there's a lot of expectation that we just find you and wear your patterns. And actually, if you're not showing my body, how on earth do I trust that you have considered any of these things? And why am I going to pay money for it? I think that's the reality.
Yeah, that's another thing that I think it's been very interesting talking in the Coven about people's different experiences with different companies, and that sort of pattern companies, but it's also like fabric companies, and what people choose to show on their grids and how that affects how we shop. Because if the Coven has proven anything, it's like there are loads of us out there. There are loads of us with serious shopping issues who are willing to spend the money. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, it's been interesting seeing sort of if there are certain companies that come up more where lots of people may have noticed, I just never see my body type on that grid. I never see, I'm always posting things for this company. I tag them a lot and they're just not, they never respond even. And it's like, it's been really interesting to see that. And hopefully we'll be able to start to see a bit of change.
Yeah, I mean, I did some pattern testing a while ago, and I was the only pattern tester not featured in their pattern roundup, and I was their only fat tester. And at that point, I took it down off the grid, because why on earth would I advertise for you when you have made a deliberate decision? Because I reached out and said, I'm not in your thing, and they just ignored me. And I thought, really, I'm sorry, I've given my time, my fabric to make this for you, and gone back with quite a lot of adjustments which I suggested needed to be made for the plus size ones, because I'm not scared of saying you haven't graded enough belly room here, this isn't going to work, because I want us to have decent patterns at the end of this. But to then make a deliberate decision not to, and I looked good, but to make a deliberate decision not to post that, you're not having my, and I will shun you forevermore, and I will shun you loudly, because it's not good enough.
But this, because I don't do a lot of testing. I am actually testing for something at the moment because it's with someone who I know is putting a lot of energy into the fit. But I started to find...
I'm doing the same one, Sarah.
Oh yeah, we are doing the same one, aren't we?
We're doing the same one.
Do you think I think I can say who it is. Do you think? Yeah. So Busty is branching out into making patterns, and Cait and I are sort of, is alpha testers or whatever. So it's like
the alpha testers,
sloper, like the very, very early fit tests basically. And she is put so much thought into fit that that the work you put in is going to really be valued. Whereas I was sort of finding I was being asked to test things, and when I gave them feedback, it's like they didn't really want the feedback. They just wanted me to post it on my grid afterwards. And that was at the point I was like, I'm not wasting my time doing this, when often I was ending up with a garment that I wasn't really going to wear because the fit wouldn't be great yet or whatever, which is obviously part of testing. But it's like, as you were saying, Bex, you want to help people get to a good block or whatever, so to get good fit for bigger size patterns. But I don't want people to just be like, I just wanted you to post it on your grid actually, and we're not going to make any adaptations to make it better, because what's the point?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been quite lucky with that one exception with pattern testing, because when I have given feedback, I mean, we'll know from the Coven I'm quite firm in what I think needs to happen, and I will give very clear direction on what I think needs to happen, and I will hold them to it, because at the end of the day, if you're making a pattern for my body, I want you to make a pattern for my body. And so I have very, very much held people to account and said, look, you're putting the sizes out there, make the adjustments. I will make another one, make the adjustments, send it back. I'm quite happy to do this over and over again until we get it right, but we're going to get it right, or else you're not going to do it. They're your options, and I will be very clear with people if people haven't done that. I mean, someone I do love testing for is Emma from Cinnamon Daisy. I think she
love Cinnamon Daisy.
I know, isn't she amazing? But I think she's genuinely someone who really wants to have an inclusive pattern. And whenever I have gone back and said, so with the fern cardigan, for example, I was testing that, and the straps on it, where you've got the bow, on the first one, well, they looked ridiculous on me because I am so much bigger than the size 8 it was, designed on. And so when I went back to her and went, this doesn't look great. She went, oh, let's just add a second size. So we've got a bigger strap, so like the proportions are right. And then another one I've done, and I don't know how to pronounce it because it's a Norwegian company, I think, Bedeck. I've probably said that wrong. But even without me asking, she graded up the pockets on a jacket. So on me, the pockets weren't stamps. They fit my body as intended. And I was just like, this is going to be a good pattern. Because you've already gone with the only way to make this look right is to grade it up. Because one of my biggest bugbears, and I don't do a lot of trousers, is fly zips, where on a size 8 they go all the way to the crotch. On a size 28 they stop halfway down and then you just have a seam. Why is that? Put in a bigger zip. We're fat, we need them to get in and out. And it's just those kind of things that I think really demonstrate whether or not you're going to be someone who wants to be inclusive and wants your designs to look right, or whether it is you're just doing it for lip service to say we've done it.
And we do know, again, it's like having that collective where everyone's sort of comparing notes. You do see the companies coming up where people do feel the love from those companies.
Yeah.
And you can tell from, I mean, Cinnamon Daisy, she's not had that many patterns yet, has she? Like maybe 5?
3.
It's only 3.
Yeah, we've got the Sylvie, the Willow, the Fern. And then there's the other one she popped out. I can't remember what it was called. That was the free pattern when you were in
the free one. And then she's got the other one coming out with the really pretty one with the little like fitted bust.
Yeah, the poppy
so
that's
cute.
coming out soon, hopefully. But she hasn't got many, but she's really. And the other
I think
thing
the willow, she hit the nail. Like I've made probably, I think I made 5 willows. I just love the willow.
It's beautiful.
And when I wear it, I made one in sequins to wear to Brighton Pride, and loads of people were stopping me and being like, "That dress, the shape of that dress on you is so good." And I felt amazing in it, honestly. And like every time I wear a willow, people are like, "That dress suits you so well." And she's just like almost straight out of the gate. She's designed this really just gorgeous dress that, again, I think looks great on everyone.
But I think the other really important thing with Emma is that she will, if I post a picture of me being fat in one of her outfits, looking fantastic, she puts me on her grid. I'm never not on it, and I think I'm as, everything I've made of her, she's put on the grid. Everything of yours, Sarah, she's put on the grid.
Yeah.
There's none of this kind of filtering that I think sometimes happens with other companies, where you're not ending up on a grid, and it's someone making that decision that your body shouldn't be on their grid because although they're size inclusive, they don't really want to show it, and that's just not the case with Emma. She is so excited to share these makes, and I think that's really lovely.
Yeah.
So I might be multitasking because I haven't made anything by Cinnamon Daisy and looking at her website. And I'm looking at the images she's got for the Isla dress, and she has 3 bodies, like just sketched up bodies, and one of them is fat.
Yeah.
And it's a sketch of a person in a fat body, and just like the way the legs go out from the knees, just the little details that say this is someone who has looked at fat bodies and who isn't disgusted but respects us. There's just something about that detailing that makes me want to give her all my money. Unfortunately, I already spent all my money this month, but next month she can have all my money, because it's that detailing of seeing and observing and realising that our bodies can be different, but they are still valid, and we still deserve clothes that fit us. We still deserve to feel fabulous. So to see that, it's the Isla dress, and she's got someone with it well above the knee and her legs going right out from the knee like mine do, and just going, oh, she's seen us, and that's really special.
Yeah. No, she's a good egg. A good egg.
Really good egg.
Emma. So, what are each of you working on at the moment? What's on the sewing table? What's up next?
Cait, do you want to kick off?
So I yesterday finished Jessie Cotigan in boiled wool with a satin lining. So I need to take photographs of that today, so that'll be going up on the grid soon. And then my next thing for the party wear book club, pattern club, for the Coven is going to be a fuller cardigan, but in a sequin velvet.
Ooh. Is that one of the ones from So Confident?
The fuller cardigan, no, that's a cashmerette.
But as in the fabric, I've seen some sequin velvet on there. Is that?
Oh,
I'm so
no,
confident
it is. It's a Minerva. It's a Minerva fabric. I'm a
Nice.
Minerva brand ambassador, so
Great.
so I've been
can't wait to see
making the
that.
most of that with free boiled wool and also sequins. So yeah, they've got it in a few different colours, but it's got a nice amount of stretch, and because it's on a velvet base, it's hopefully going to be reasonably straightforward. So, but I'll find out today.
Amazing. Exciting. How about you, Christina? What are you working on at the moment?
So, I mean, I finished this 2 weeks ago, but I'm still going to talk about it because I've just finished the Saban coat by Cashmerette, and you know that's how Bex and I met, and it was my Moby Dick. You know, it was the thing I had to get, and I'm taking that out to the seaside after this, and it's going to have a photo shoot if it doesn't rain. But currently, I'm working on a Daughter Judy teak dress made out of a sort of monochrome black and white double jersey. But I've seen a hack online. The lady who lunches made that, but used the Manor and Broad Whitlam skirt for the skirt, because obviously Manor and Broad no fat bodies, you know, and they draft for us. So I'm going to try subbing in that skirt because I think that will give better belly and bum shaping. And that's all cut out and waiting for me to actually have 2 seconds to sit at the sewing machine.
Great. And Bex?
So I dared myself to make a jumpsuit, and I've been in the coven very vocally saying, I really want to make one of those, but I can't do it. So I'm now putting my money where my mouth is, and I'm attempting a Mercia. And yesterday I started doing the top down, centre out toiling of the trousers, which I haven't worn trousers in at least a decade. It's going to be a whole new thing for me. I have decided it's going to look awful, and so I can be pleasantly surprised if it isn't awful. But I'm making it in like a magenta velvet, so I'm going to look very fancy lounging around my house when I don't wear it out, because I won't do that yet. But there's so many people in the coven who are like, you need to do it, and I'm like, okay, I'm doing it, but I don't like it. So hopefully I'm going to have a jumpsuit.
I'm excited to see how that turns out. Especially, I've heard quite a bit about the top-down, centre-out method, but I've just like enjoyed letting other people get on with it.
Yeah, I haven't quite wrapped my. To be fair, yesterday I put them on as drafted and then did some adjustments, and then they did look better. So I don't know what I did, but I did it and it looked better. So I'm.
Right.
And I think that's probably the best thing about the top-down centre-out is you don't need to know what you're doing. You're just moving a pin rather than having to work out whether or not you need a weird crotch adjustment or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
You can just wriggle things around, so that's certainly something that seems to be quite good.
Yeah. We have we have lots of very talented coven members, but one of the patterns I'm planning on making up next is Tiana's juniper dress.
Oh, yes.
How good does that look on everybody?
I know.
It's on my list. I have the fabric I want to make it out of just there, but you can't see it. But I have more monochrome because I rather like a monochrome, and I can't wait to make it. And I love the work Tiana's done. I'm so obviously she had this well in train before the coven, but I'm still so excited that a coven member's made a pattern. And everyone I've seen wearing it looks amazing in it. I'll probably make it slightly longer because I don't know, I can be quite boring. But
I really like the ones with the two ends on it. That looked really good. The really long one that Tiana did. That looked phenomenal. Yeah. I mean, all of them. I love the look. That one looked really lovely. So I don't think that makes you boring. I think it's just a different way of wearing it.
But that's one I didn't follow Tiana prior to the coven, and I was completely not aware of that pattern. So I would not have known about that pattern if it hadn't been for the coven. So, and I'm sure that's true of other people. So, so hopefully I feel like that dress is going to get all of the love it deserves because we've got that sort of concentration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really lovely. And it's really lovely seeing people coming out of the coven and going, look what we've done. Or we've got someone who before they joined the coven had never sewn anything. And then we had their first skirt that they made during the course of it. And just seeing everyone being able to immediately pile on and be like, this is amazing. Whereas I think sometimes you post on Instagram and because you're not well known and because the algorithm's a pain, you end up not getting all the little hearts. And actually, like, it's a really big deal that you finished your first thing. And so suddenly everyone being able to be like, well done, because I don't know about you lot, but I go into my partner, I show him my dress, and he's like, looks nice. And I'm like, no, look at this seam, look at this pattern map. And they don't know any of that. Whereas like when you go into a group of sewists and go, look where I matched, and everyone's like, oh, it's that kind of like immediate reaction that you want. You want everyone being like, good stripes. That's what you need.
Yeah. So what's next up for the Coven? Do you have any plans?
So I don't. This is one where we sort of all talked and went, ooh. There's talk of a retreat. Leave Bex alone in a room for an hour and we'll all be somewhere. So we'll. But I think in terms of longer term plans, there's an element of suck it and see. A lot of the Coven is due to serendipity. The three of us found each other, supported each other. We have differing but related skill sets that meant we could launch it. And it's become really important to folk. We're determined. We're really lucky that we launched it and there's no aim of monetization around it, so we can keep it a community-owned, very sort of inclusive space. And I think we're really committed to keeping it inclusive, making it more inclusive, and keeping it going because our members tell us it's important to them. And it's important to all three of us. So that's the sort of vibe check, but we'll see what happens. I think the retreat's definitely on the cards.
Yeah, definitely.
And a Zoom Christmas or winter party. You know, there will continue to be events and we'll continue to really, really welcome anyone who wants to join.
Yeah, and if people do want to join the Coven, what do they need to do?
Find us on Instagram. She says, looking at what the tag is, that would have been much more impressive if I thought.
Curvy_Coven_UK on Instagram. And
you don't have to be in the UK.
No, although we've got UK in there, you don't have to be. Unfortunately, someone already had Curvy Coven on Instagram, rude, and hadn't actually posted anything with it. So how dare they? Such a good name. But yeah, no, we have members from all over the world, and we're quite happy to have anyone anywhere, really. We've got quite a lot of Aussies who have joined, quite a lot in America. We've got one person in South Africa who currently has the entire continent to themselves. They would love some members to come and join them there. But no, literally anywhere you are, there will be someone awake in the Coven to help you with something, because I don't think the Coven ever sleeps, actually. It's just you wake up and there's 400 messages and you're suddenly like, ooh, what's happened here? Someone's made something and everyone's very excited about it. So there's always someone there, and I think that's one of the really lovely things. So yeah, send us a message on Instagram, find any of us on Instagram, drop us a message, we'll point you in the right direction. Yeah, just come and join us.
Great. And it's worth saying as well, we picked Curvy Coven because we all love an alliteration.
Yeah.
Curvy possibly implies one type of body in terms of gender, but we're inclusive. Anyone is welcome who sews and who's in a bigger body.
Yeah, there was some discussion about changing it to Chubby Coven, which I quite like, but it's too late now. We've got a logo that one of our very talented members drew us, so it's
beautiful logo.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, the logo is amazing. The whole thing is amazing. Thank you so much for joining me today, ladies. It's been really interesting to hear from you all and about how the Coven came to be. I know I really appreciate that the Coven exists, and I've already gained a lot from it, and I know that other current members will feel the same, and other future members will also feel the same. So thank you so much for setting it up and for being here to chat to me today.
It's been so much fun.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks guys, bye.